with all of the cap space that the Miami Dolphins are currently projected to have, could a big move be on the horizon? We will throw out a few potential names on today's episode. Also, me and Neal, we've been talking about the draft all year on this channel. Today, I want to talk about what the ceiling and what the floor could be at 13 and 48 for the Miami Dolphins in the 2025 NFL Draft. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new, and as always, let's get into this.
Touchdown! You have got to be kidding me.
Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown.
And he will score! Field on the near side, man open, touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown!
He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown. He's in.
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan.
Let's go!
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw, blitz coming, and get to him. No, he takes off running, and he's in. Touchdown, Miami!
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We are back here for another one as we dive Fin Too Deep with myself and Neal Driscoll. We were just talking about it backstage. I want to remind all of you, next week, next Friday, April 4th, have a new podcast dropping. Y'all are going to want to check it out. We got an off-season format and a regular season format. We will go into that on our debut episode. More details next week, but I think y'all are really going to like who I'll be partnering up with for this endeavor. Speaking of endeavors, Neal Driscoll, welcome back. It's been a couple weeks, but I want to talk about something because, man, first of all, Neal, can I be honest with you, bro? Like, I want to get your thoughts on this first. Listen. How do I say this without coming off like negatively? But Neal, we talk about the draft year round on this channel. Okay, we don't stop. We're talking about it. Let's be honest. All right, we were talking about Jackson Dart on this channel August, September. You're talking about Jalen Milroe around the same time. We've been talking about Kenneth Grant forever on this channel. Neal, I've been saying to you since October, man, imagine if Will Johnson follows us, and we were like, it's never going to happen. And like, we talk about the draft all year round. Now, I've been active the past couple of days, posting clips and giving some takes and stuff like that. And aren't you amazed, Neal, how people like me and you study these prospects, talk about them year round, yet a lot of 90% of these people on, let's just use Twitter. I'm not even going to say YouTube, on Twitter. 90% of these people on Twitter, Neal, they don't talk about the draft all year. All of a sudden, they start watching highlights in March and start reading scouting reports that they haven't even written, and they're draft experts, and they want to come out and tell people like me and you, oh, you need to, I had someone telling me that I need to, learn how to watch ball yesterday or something like that. And I don't even remember what the take was over, but I said to this person, I said, first of all, like, who are you? And you're coming in here questioning me with one of the better draft track records in this community. And what, you've been watching tape since March? Like, isn't it amazing how everyone's all of a sudden an expert in the draft come March, Neal, but you haven't heard a peep from them about prospects all year?
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And I think one of the funnier things is when actually people use the scouting combine as their end all be all for what makes a draft prospect because someone ran fast. Like, there's, I don't tell anyone kind of how to digest the draft, but like, it's a lot of like, you just hear people naming the same names off the same list that they probably got off of a Lindy's magazine or something like that, where it's like, I can tell when you say that Jaden Higgins is at, Iowa instead of Iowa State, that like it's like very cursory, you know what I mean? It's just, but it is that time of year. But for me, like, I don't care if I'm right, mock draft or all that. Like, for me, it's about gathering the players, creating your own board, kind of feeling like you're a GM and seeing what an NFL team does against your board, right? Like, I think that's one of the beauties of the draft. We're less than a month away, but it is that season where, if you sometimes have a take or an opinion that is not status quo, like if you think Kenneth Grant's better than Mason Graham, people automatically think you're like clowning or trolling or you don't know ball, right? Like all the things we hear. The reality is, we all look at prospects different, and, taking that list that's been chalked for 3-4 months at this point and just kind of make your own isn't my style. I think it's, we like to dig into these prospects. We like to, kind of create our man crush list and see how the team does. But it is that time of year, man, when everyone's trying to tell you they're right and you're wrong.
Hey, but you know what? And I've said this before. If you put in the work, I got no problem with you trying to tell me that you're right and I'm wrong. But I know how hard it is to access collegiate all-22 and have access to this stuff. Like I had someone yesterday, they were claiming that I was capping, that I've watched every Jackson. I've watched Dart going back to Jackson State. And this person was like, I'm from Mississippi. I've had to watch some games on Facebook. And I said to the guy, I said, what? Because you have to watch broadcasts on Facebook, you think I can't find the all-22? And then I provided to show screenshots of, I literally, because I use Catapult Thundercloud, and they literally, about 4 months ago, they stopped allowing screen recording. Right. So now I got to use my backup hard drives. I have access to 24, 23, 22, 20, back to 20. I got access to most games back to 2020 through hard drives, but through Catapult Thundercloud, I have access to every collegiate game, in every division heading back to 2019. But they've pulled the Netflix where they don't allow you to screen record now. Like I used to just, I could post up any clip from that and it was way easier. Now it's much more tedious because, that through Catapult Thundercloud, I could jump straight from play to play to play to play. I could jump to plays. Through my hard drives, I got to go through like the hour and 20 minutes worth of film. You know what I mean? So, but I had someone doubting me. Oh, that's cap. I had to watch Jackson State games on Facebook. And I literally pulled up screenshots because I can't pull up screen recordings from Catapult of Middle Tennessee and freaking Jackson State. I said, what are you talking about? Like, just because y'all don't have access to it doesn't mean I don't have access to it, bro. And I've had access to this for years and years and years. It's like when I caught a certain someone in this channel, in this community, who tries to pass himself off as a super nice guy on Twitter, right? You know who I'm talking about, back from your Pro Football Network days, when I caught him red-handed telling people behind the scenes that I don't really watch film, and I posted like screenshots of my freaking library, and this was before I even had access to Catapult, because this was like 2021, and I got access to Catapult in 2022. So like, but that's where these people are at, bro. Like they think the center of the football universe revolves around wherever they are. It's crazy, bro. And you'll put in the work, you'll build up your background of credibility. And these people who aren't paying attention to the draft for 10 and a half, 11 months of the year, all of a sudden think they know it all and you know nothing. It's like the most delusional, I love draft season, but I'll be honest with you, that's my biggest pet peeve with draft season is, honestly, and this is just direct and blunt, Instead of 95% of these people watching highlights and reading little scouting reports that they didn't even put the work in themselves, bro, those people, instead of opening your mouths, you need to shut your mouths and open your ears and listen to the people who know what they're talking about and just be a sponge. But my problem is, Neal, these people will use other people's opinions to formulate their own instead of doing the own work, but then they will argue their opinion, which isn't even theirs, that's formulated off others, as gospel against people who, hey, whether they're right or wrong, they put in the work, you didn't. Like, that's to me.
And it's where it's like, if you cover the draft, you're going to be wrong a lot, just as much as you're right. Like, that's what it is. And then, like, there's some that be like, oh, well, your mock draft, you only got 4 right. I care about the evaluations. That's what I care about.
Yeah.
Like, the actual evaluations. Mock draft is a futile exercise that gets it's really.
I mean, you do one a year. One.
Yeah. And to be honest, when I do them on those machines, and I'm not knocking them, it's a fun exercise. It's not realistic, and then I always end up like picking in favor of the Dolphins. Like, it's just designed to make you do that. So it's one of those things. And then one of the other things, I just hate sometimes the insane tribalism towards certain players. Like if you were the Jackson
Tyler
Powers,
Warren.
Yeah, it's like the Jackson Powers Johnson last year. Like Chop Robinson was actually, and I necessarily didn't know it at the time, but Chop Robinson was a much better first round pick than Jackson Powers was a second round pick. You know what I mean? So I feel like we get locked on certain players, and if you don't think that like Tyler Warren's a good example. Like, I like Tyler Warren. I actually have him as the second tight end.
Yeah, you like Loveland better.
Yeah, as someone who watches a ton of Penn State football, like, as good as Tyler Warren was last year, he also couldn't beat out Theo Johnson for snaps the year before. And, he was a 1-year impact player at Penn State. And I'll tell you this, I worry about his ability to separate at the next level.
I didn't even think of that, Mike. Holy jeez. Have you made that point before? Because I wish I had heard you make that point before. That is a solid point. I didn't even think about that.
No,
I didn't even think about that.
But it's not to knock Tyler Warren as a prospect, man. I still think he's the second best tight end. I actually think he's a really good fit for the Dolphins. I just don't think it's a great fit to 13. And, with the holes that this team has and, the defense, like, I'm all about if Will Johnson's there, Malachi Starks is there, Kenny Grant's there, right? Like, those are all A+ type of draft picks for me.
Yeah.
But, I just don't think Tyler Warren's worth it. And I think tight ends are being overevaluated a little bit, or elevated a little bit this year.
Because of Brock.
Yeah, and I will say this. Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren combined might not be Brock Bowers. Literally the stats they put up this year combined probably won't equal what Brock Bowers did for the Raiders. So not all prospects are the same, man. But, it is. I'm coming into this draft season with a very open mind. There's 15 guys probably that the Dolphins could take at 13 that I'd be really happy with. Very few guys that they, but they're really, when you think about it, like,
you're not talking about guys who could be off the board like Mason Graham. You're including him in case he slides, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like Abdul Carter.
I was gonna say, geez, what are we taking? Siobhan Revel at 13, bro?
No, but you know what? There's just there's a lot of paths for success, and there's not a lot of paths for failure in their draft. Like, that's how I truly see how the Dolphins are heading into this draft. It's like, now, you pick a guy like Michael Williams, you pick, you can piss me off pretty quickly because I know this. Somebody very talented that the Dolphins really have no business picking is going to be there at 13. And I don't even care because I draft positions game. I draft players. Like, I could care less if the Dolphins, if Mason Graham was there, or if somehow, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's, give me the best player, and that includes a running back from Boise State that I don't have to name, but, like, give me who the best player who falls into your lap is at that time. Don't think about needs. Don't be cute. Take that player, because we might see 3 quarterbacks go before us, and if we do, that means somebody insanely talented will fall into our lap. Take that guy.
Okay, so I got a few. Let me get your thoughts on this. And there's a draft question I want to ask you after all this. But anyways, I think the guy you're talking about, the one that I'd be worried about if I was a Dolphin fan that they're not expecting them to take, and I've dropped his name quite a bit, I think that's Jalen Walker, bro. I think and now I don't think he's going to fall, but if that guy falls to us, I could see that being the guy that not a lot of people are expecting them to go linebacker / edge, but because he's that hybrid and he gives you that premium flexibility as being an edge rusher on pat, like I could see them making that move. Mikael Williams, I hope not, because that takes Starks over him. But to your point about if Ashton Jeanty's on the board, I'm trading back, bro. Like, I'm calling the Broncos, and I'm saying, hey, you want this guy to pair with Bo Nixon? What you got going on there? What do you got? Like, I'm calling someone in those early 20s. Like, now I know Pittsburgh's potentially going to take a quarterback, but man, they don't have Najee anymore. What, Tyler Warren is the lead cow now? I don't know. Is it lead cowbell back now? I don't know. Tyler Warren. Like, I'm calling team like this that could potentially need a running back, and I'm saying, yo, Jinty's here. What do you want to move up? Or let's say Tyler Warren doesn't go and Loveland are on the board, and the Colts are right after me at 14, and everyone's pretty much mocking them, Warren or Loveland. Who wants to move up for one of the tight ends? Who wants to jump the Colts? Like, let's get some offers. Like, there's got to be certain players on the board. Like Mason Graham, I don't think he's going to slide, but if he does, I'd pull the trigger on Graham before him, but I would understand them pulling the trigger on Mason Graham if he slides. I mean, we'll get into the ceiling and floor picks here in a bit at 13, but man, I do agree with you. Let's talk about the fact that 3 quarterbacks might go in the top 10 right now. I know you're seeing it. It started with Kuiper mocking my boy Jackson, baby, to the Saints, which actually I kind of like, minus the whole money situation over there. If they had the money right, I would actually like that situation because the NFC and him. But anyways, Jackson, and now he's being mocked as high to the Jets. Now, I don't want to see two guys I don't want to see go to the Jets are Membo if he falls past the Patriots or Jackson Dart going to the Jets. And it's not so much that Jackson Dart could light us up because he really could, but I also don't want to see Aaron Glenn ruin this kid because he's not an offensive mind and you need time with Jackson Dart. What are your thoughts on 3 quarterbacks in the top 10? I think, Neal, because we haven't done a show in a couple weeks, I've been telling people I think there's a chance that 7 quarterbacks go in the first 4 rounds. I think you got, obviously, Cam. I think you got Shedeur. I think you got Jackson. I think you got Jalen. I think you got Tyler Shuck. I've heard latest for Kyle McCord is 3rd round. And the 7th, I think Quinn Ewers is going in those top 4 too, especially from what I hear in league circles about how the NFL is much higher on him than we are. And I don't know if you saw my show a couple of days ago about Quinn Ewers, but I spoke to a Texas reporter who's basically, remember how I didn't buy the Xavier Worthy smoke screen last year? Well, the Texas reporter basically told me, yeah, McDaniel was watching Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell, but he was all over Quinn Ewers and having a lengthy conversation with Quinn Ewers. And now we got a report from a Saints reporter that we're visiting with what's his face? With Ewers after his pro day. So that could be any day. He could be a top 30 visit for all we know. What are your thoughts on 3 quarterbacks in the top 10 and overall in general, 7 potential quarterbacks in the first 4 rounds?
Well, look, the wild card in the draft is going to be the Cleveland Browns because if Cam Ward's going 1, whether it's to the Titans or Giants, in my opinion, right? Mm-hmm. Meaning, I think the Giants signing Russell Wilson to me was the hedge in their bets type of move because they might have some level of intel that the Browns are looking at Shedeur. I think that they want to prepare themselves in case they don't get him. I've heard they like Jackson. I don't think Jackson go 3. The team that I think sneaks up I do think the Jets will have interest, but I think if he's there, Tyler Warren's going to be their guy. But I think the New Orleans Saints are the wild card for Jackson Dart. And I also think as he falls out of the top 5,
he's not getting past the Steelers.
Well, I was going to say the Steelers are a team that I think could pick up the phone and actually try to move back up in the draft to get him if he survives that top 10 picks around that Cowboys, Niners, Dolphins pick range. I could totally see the Steelers trying to make a bold move to get up there and get them, and that would make a lot of sense to me. And if that happens, I mean, I'm confident that 3 are going to go in the first round at this point. So you get that combined with, I think Tyler Shough is going to go. I think he's going to go in the first 10 picks of the second round, actually. And you combine that with Milroe, that gives you 5. And you said in the first 4 rounds.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've heard McCord's going in the 3rd, and Ewers is probably going in the 3rd too.
Yeah, I think, and I've thought this all along, that if at pick 98 he's on the board, the Dolphins would take Quinn Ewers. He is a guy that I think they've liked for a long time. He kind of fits exactly what McDaniel's looking for. It actually, honestly, is in a good range of taking a guy that was probably projected as as a top 10 pick earlier in the year, right?
Yeah.
I'm not that high on as that status on Quinn Ewers, but I will say that I'm very intrigued to see the Dolphins go and get the young quarterback, because I know they got Zach Wilson, but I'd like to see them double down on the backup position here for this season. So, yeah, at pick 98, the way I look at it is that's the range you want them to look at a guy like Ewers or Colin McCord, to be honest, because, you're going to get 2 good players at pick 13 and 48. Pick 98 is where you're starting to really look at depth and role players. So, taking a lottery ticket on a quarterback wouldn't be the worst thing.
See, I'm on record. I think where they're going to start looking for a quarterback is that 4th round pick at 116, because we got 4 picks between 116 and 155, I believe. So we've got like 5 picks in a 39 pick range. I think that's where ideally they'd like to take a quarterback, but I do agree to your notion that you probably would have to take Ewers at 98, because he might not last to 116. He might even be gone by 98. That's what's crazy about this now.
I heard the Colts and Seahawks like him a lot too. So and it wouldn't surprise me, because Darnold's practically on a 1-year deal, and the Colts obviously have no faith in Anthony Richardson, right? So it wouldn't surprise me if they went those routes. But yeah, I have a feeling the Dolphins are going to add a pick though, and I don't know if it's because they're trading back from 48. What you said earlier about like the Dolphins trading, I had the Dolphins in my mock draft that will be coming out next week, trading back with a team, Denver, moving up for a tight end, getting Malachi Starks and adding a 2nd round pick. So like getting him at 21 or 22, whatever that was. So like, I think those are really real scenarios that this could happen. Because they need more picks. They have cap space, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but like you can't go from pick 48 to 98 without making a pick. You just can't do it. It's too good of a draft. You got to find a way. Even if to me, and I don't want to part with a 2nd round pick, but if it's the start of the 3rd round and there's someone at the top of that board that you view as a 2nd round player that has, you have intent and you wanted him, and you have to trade a 2026 2nd rounder, so be it. Like I don't care. Like, go get players, because it's the draft to strike in that range where typically maybe it's not. I think you get in there in early round 3, you're probably getting a good quality mid to late round 2 player. So I think they need to add another pick in that sequence there.
Yeah. Someone said in the chat, Dolphins will pick Gabriel in the 4th, and I said you can probably get Gabriel in round 5 and beyond. I don't think you'd have to spend the 4th round pick on. You could wait till the 5th for Dylan Gabriel. I don't think the NFL.
Please no.
Yeah,
Please
I don't. Yeah, there's no arm there. Now we were talking about the quarterbacks there for a sec, and you brought up the Giants and everything. So the rumor on the street is that the Giants and the Titans were working on a deal. And basically, the Titans wanted the 3rd pick as well as multiple 2025 and 2026 day 2 picks.
They got greedy, it sounded like. Yep.
Yeah. The Titans then wanted a 2026 first. Giants wouldn't do that. The thing that even made it worse was apparently the Titans then hosted Cam Ward and were blown away by Cam so much that they raised their asking price to also include a 2027 first. And that's why look at how quickly the Giants pivoted after, like, what was it, 3 hours after the pro day ended, they signed Russell? Like, that's why they pivoted that quickly, it seems, because they realized the asking price was so high. Now, I go back to this, Neal. Okay, if they were willing to have that conversation with those high asking prices, and they went and signed Russell, and now the Cleveland Browns are rumored to be the team that either wants Dak Prescott or is sitting around and waiting on Kirk Cousins. Is Shedeur a lock to even go 2 or 3 here right now? I'm getting the vibe that, this isn't a lock as people think it is, that he's going to go at 2 or 3. And maybe the Giants and the Browns are viewing guys like Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter as better football players, because I've heard a scenario that the Giants believe Shedeur's going to slide. They think they can take Travis at 3 and potentially trade back up into the first and get Shedeur.
I mean, look, dude, I don't think Shedeur is a top 10 pick by any means. I don't have him
Neither
as a
do I.
first rounder. The Giants, somebody's going to get a hell of an offensive coordinator hired next year in Brian Daboll, because the Giants are awful, man. Like, this strategy for them with the quarterback position, like, go get Jameis as your backup, whatever, but then you get Russell. Did you not learn from what the Steelers just went through, that Russell Wilson is not going to get you anywhere, right? Like, he's not going to. He's going to actually probably hurt the growth of Malik Neighbors, who you just drafted, at the top 10 pick last year. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like, if they took Shedeur at 3, it'd be even more of an unorthodox approach to go in and trying to find a quarterback. But yeah, I mean, like, they're the kind of the kid at the dance floor without a dance partner, because, like, they have no leverage. They have to take what falls to them, or give away their draft pick future to go get a quarterback. Now, I don't even think there's a possibility the Titans will trade that pick, because they're so enamored with Cam Ward. So it's like, do the Giants really consider taking Jackson Dart at 3? Well, like, if they're considering taking Shedeur there, they could do that, right? But it's like, man, like, those second and third picks are very intriguing, because it has the ability at pick 2 to change the entire foundation of the draft. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm really intrigued. I feel like at this time, usually you can mock the top 5 picks pretty confidently. I'll be honest, man. After pick 1, I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting draft, man. It really is. So let's get into it. There's a lot to talk about with this draft. So let's talk about, you want to talk about ceilings and floors, or you want to talk about the cap space first?
Yeah, ceilings and floors are good.
Okay, so let's talk about the ceiling and floor at 13. I'll give my thoughts on this one, and then you can start off 48. We'll go from there, okay? Let me know what I'll go on 13, then you can go give your thoughts, and then we'll go from there, okay? So, to me, when I look at the ceiling for that pick, to me, it's got to be, you mentioned, if Mason Graham somehow falls, if Will Campbell falls, if Armand Membo falls, I think if Will Johnson is obviously still on the board, I think, listen, I know we got him ranked higher than a lot of people. I'll even throw Kenneth Grant in there. I'll give you those names, right? I'll give you Mason Graham, Will Campbell, Armand Membo, Will Johnson, and Kenneth Grant. I think those are the ceilings at that pick. To me, the floor at that pick is the trade back we talked about. If a Jeanty's on the board and you want to field offers, or Tet McMillan is on the board and you want to see someone comes up for a receiver, I think that's the floor, is a trade back from 13. Now, if we're talking about players, I think the floor is, maybe a Tyler Warren if he slips. I would put Jahdae Barron in that floor. I would put Kelvin Banks in that floor, though I don't think they'll take him. I think Malachi Starks is on that floor. I could see them sneakily liking Mike Green. So what do you think the ceiling and the floor for 13 is?
Yeah, I think the floor is Jedi Barron. I think that's the perfect name for it for me.
Yeah.
Like I'd personally want Jedi Barron over Tyler Warren. I'm just being honest. I'd rather have
I would do
Barron.
that too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So Barron would be my floor. It's kind of like a B type of grade in the draft. You filled a need with a good player who's smart. He's not going to cause a lot of riffraff on the field. I like it, right? The safe pick, is a guy like Malachi Starks. He's probably going to be one of the most balanced prospects that come in the league. He's NFL ready. He's great. Obviously I think guys that are my ceiling is I like Kenneth Grant more than most. I think he's a Dexter Lawrence type of player. So I could get him. I think Will Johnson would be a ceiling type of pick, a cornerback that is probably going number 5 to Jacksonville if there wasn't any health questions. So like those are two guys that like I would totally want. And honestly, obviously, if Mason Graham fell, I will say this though,
Crazy.
if I had to think who is the one prospect that I think would actually be the best player for the Dolphins to get if they could, it would be Armand Membu.
Yeah.
Where I think that he can, for the first year or two in football, be what Marshall Yanda was in Baltimore as a guard. And then he has the ability to kick out. And like it's that roughness, it's that ruggedness, it's the identity changing type of pick. And I don't care that if he played and started at guard. You tell me heading into this season, our starting guards are James Daniels and Armand Membu with Austin Jackson, Teron Armstead, Patrick Paul, and Aaron Brewer in the line. Like, that's the type of move that makes up for signing a guy like Liam Eichenberg.
Yeah, bro.
Eichenberg's not going to find the field. So, like, that's who I like. The perfect pick for me is if they can get in striking distance, and I don't even care if they trade a 3rd round pick in next year's draft to move up to 10 with Chicago to get Membu.
So I talked about this yesterday on Twitter because someone asked anybody worth trading up for. I said, Membo, you could talk me. Membo, I would do in a heartbeat. Will Campbell, you could talk me into. Membo, let's say he got to 8. I believe the Panthers are at 8, right? If he got to 8 and you offered your 13th pick and the 2026 second round pick, you're over about 100 points in terms of value.
Yeah, I'd pull the trigger.
110%, bro. And I agree with you. You know my theory. Membo, buddy, this is the ultimate pick. You kick him at guard. And if Austin Jackson is hurt again, y'all want to move off Tua? Okay, cool. Let's move off Austin Jackson too. And you kick this man to right tackle, and you've got your bookend tackle. Or if Patrick Paul doesn't work out, this guy's got the movement ability. He's got the athleticism. He's got the football IQ where he would, like Penei Sewell. I was right about Penei moving from left to right. Membo can make the change from right to left if you need him to as well, I think.
And that's literally what I was just going to say. I wouldn't even discount that Armand Membu finds a home as a left tackle in the NFL.
Yeah,
that's how good I think
he is. He's gonna be a stud, bro.
Yeah, like he's like that's a complete identity changer, and like it would really show a true commitment to this offensive line, and like it writes a lot of the wrongs of the ghost from the past. It rights the wrong of even having Eichenberg on this team, right? Like this is the type of player that transforms the way you operate because he is that initial puzzle piece that takes you from a finesse team to a smash mouth rugged team. He is. I think as a rookie, it wouldn't surprise me if you put him at right guard if he is in year 1 the best right guard in the entire football league. That's how high of praise I have,
bro. Like, listen, I know you know this. The viewers know this. I'm not high on Josh Simmons at all. He's my OT6. If you count Will Campbell as an OT, Will Campbell would be my OT2 behind Membo is my OT1, which would make Josh Simmons OT7. Not high on him at all. Did you see what Bob McGinn wrote about him after Tannenbaum had us taking him in a mock? So, an NFL scout called him the FA word. Like, called them finesse, called them soft, called them that FA word. You know which one I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
You know, and it goes back to your point about Membo. There's certain guys, like, I'm coming up with my guard big board, right? Brother, I know everyone, and I know you've seen it, Neal. This talk about Booker at 13 is asinine, Neal. This man does not move nearly well enough, pulling, reach blocking in open space, whatever you need him to do. He can't do, he's not fit for an outside zone offense. He's just not. He's a power man gap guard.
He's
And people are
AFC North. He's an AFC North
yeah,
guard.
and people are talking about taking this guy at 13, bro. And this is why I go back to your point of nastiness. Jonah Savannah, bro. And let's go to 48 here. Ceiling at 48, and I'll let you take over. But one of the ceiling players for me at 48, Neal, is Jonah Savannah. Because if you, let's say you get a Kenneth Grant, a Mason Graham, or a Will Johnson, and now you want to circle back, man, that's that nastiness. That's that movement ability. That's that power, that blend we are looking for. Plus, he's got tackle length. He's just, Savannah is on record saying, I want to play guard, and he's played right guard and left guard at Arizona. Give me your ceiling and floor at 48, and then I'll give you my thoughts on it, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and I think this is actually the most crucial pick of the night for the Dolphins because at 13, like I have a lot of faith, actually, a team that's done well with the 13th pick with Laramie Tunsil and Christian Wilkins, A.J. Dewey. I think they're going to get that pick right. This is where it's interesting to me because I think that Miami often outsmarts themselves when it comes to this type of pick. So, like, for me, my floor isn't really a player. It's go get me. If you don't get an offensive lineman in round one, and I'll stand on record, I don't think the Dolphins are going to go line in round one. Get me the best. The floor is to get the best interior offensive line for me. So if that is Savannah, if that's Donovan Jackson, if that's Gray Zabel, whoever that is, Tate Ratledge, whoever that player is, that's my floor because you need to have a better player than Liam Eichenberg starting at your guard position. It's unacceptable to do that. So that's where it's like, if you go defense round one, which is the first pick at pick 48 should be the best interior guy you can get. And he should start day one next to Aaron Brewer. And if Armstead's back, that's where he should be, right in between them. Keep James Daniels at right guard where he's thrived, his best position. Don't play musical chairs. My ceiling, I'll give you two players, and the only reason these guys would be available is because of character. Walter Nolan from Mississippi.
Bam.
Like, I totally think there's a possibility he's there at 48. And I'll say
I do too.
If they took Kenneth Grant at 13 and Walter Nolan's there, I'm still taking Walter Nolan. Like, I
love it.
I'm still doing it because I'm not going to – they're just two totally different players. The other guy I would take without thinking about it if he falls, because I think he's actually – probably the second best pure edge pass rusher in this draft is Mike Green. If Mike Green is there at 48 and he's got some,
I think he's still going top 20, bro.
He could, because you know why? He's that damn good. Like his ability to pursuit on the back end is outrageous. Like I love him. I actually hope that he gets caught with the gas mask on draft night so he falls to round two, because like that like when you get, like, to your point, a top 20 type player in the draft at pick 48, that's how your franchise gets changes. That luck, that lottery ticket, that when you're getting extreme value.
Detroit Lions.
Right. They've done it. They've drafted the guys that we've wanted on this show for years.
Buddy, they got Sewell at what, 7? And the guy was like, should have went number 1, 2, or 3 in that draft.
Yeah, but those are the two picks, man. And that's why, like, I'm okay. Like, maybe the back end of the round 2, whatever they have to do. Like, I'll say this. I don't care about giving up one of the day 2 2026 picks.
Yeah.
Because I think this is a huge year.
Yeah, you got to live for now. You got to live in the moment this year.
Yep. Because what we know is the cap is going to continue to go up. This NFL Network acquisition by ESPN is going to raise the cap $30 to $40 million in a couple of years. Like, you can't duplicate draft picks often. And when you can, like, and you strike gold, because I think this, let's just go in a world that they go Malachi Starks and offensive line with their first 2 picks. There's going to be guys on the back end of round 2, like Deion Walker, that I think would make a lot of sense for them, right? Darius Alexander from Toledo. Like, those type of guys, like, to get back in and fill another huge need with a guy who will probably be around the BPA at that time. Yeah, it is a huge feather in the cap for them. So they got to be aggressive.
I got one for you. I'll give you some more scenarios, okay? So I totally agree with you. The floor should be one of these guys. I 110% agree with you. Whether it's a Tate Ratledge, a Jonas Savannah, whoever it is that's sticking around, Donovan Jackson. Listen, I like Donovan Jackson better than I like taking Tyler Booker. I like Donovan Jackson better than I like taking Josh Simmons at 13 as well, because Donovan Jackson is a guard, but he showed me dominant tackle reps in the playoffs, so he's got that flexibility.
He was the best offensive lineman in the playoffs.
And I get this guy in the second. Great. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? I can get so. Yeah,
he's
agree.
He's a bad dude too. He's a bad dude, man.
I think Donovan Jackson, Tate Ratledge, Jonas Savannah. I agree with you. These should be some. Hey, Gray Zabel's around. These should be some of the guys. Now, I think there are some ceiling guys. I will agree with the guys you named, but I'll give you some more. I think if Landon Jackson is on the board, right? I think they'll love that. I think they'll love him. If Jalen Milroe is still sticking around at 48, I think you got to consider that.
I love that.
I think there's two corners I really love that could be there. Trey Amos. Listen, you got Travis Hunter as a cornerback. Okay, Trey Amos is cornerback 4 for me, behind Barron and Will Johnson. If you do not have Travis Hunter as a corner and as a wide receiver, Trey Amos is my corner 3. I'm a big fan. Another guy, two other guys might be sticking around. Siobhan Revel might be there. Azariah Thomas, right? And I'll give you another thing too. If we take Will Johnson, I'll give you, this is an ultimate ceiling for you, Neal, okay? I want you to think about this. You take Will Johnson at 13, Neal, okay? 24 comes around, Kenneth Grant's still on the board.
You move up in a second.
Package that 48 with some 2026 picks and throw in some 2027 if you have to. Move up and go get Kenneth Grant. Imagine coming out with your first 2 picks, Will Johnson and Kenneth Grant, Neal. Your defense.
You know what? I would do it for Kenny Grant, and I would do it for Malachi Starks. I would do it for either of those
I'll
two
give
players.
that. Yeah.
But
I think you nailed it with Walter Nolan, bro. He's gonna fall, and if you don't take Kenny Grant, you don't take Mason Graham at 13, and you take Will Johnson, I think you got a real shot at pairing Walter Nolan with Will Johnson in this draft. And same thing, let me repeat. Okay, you can walk away. You can get a safety maybe deeper in the draft, maybe a Hunter Waller or someone like that. Get someone deeper to add into the mix. You still got Patrick McMorris, and then you just got to pray for health on the back end, and you're pretty much set.
Yeah, Walter Nolan's a top 15 player in the draft.
Yeah, bro. That's the one I think falls to the second. I don't think Green does, because from what I've heard, Green has answered about his past 2 teams in the interview process, and teams are more comfortable with what Mike Green has told them as opposed to what they've heard from Walter Nolan. And another guy who's going to fall too, I've heard bad things about Isaiah Bond.
Yeah, he ran a good 40 today. Yeah,
I know, but I've heard bad things behind the scenes. Like I heard at the combine when he fell on his face with that guarantee, I heard behind the scenes it was even worse for him because of what teams were digging up on him and finding out about him through the interview process. So
surprised me.
Yeah. So okay, we've given our ceilings, we've given our floors. Let's talk about this, Neal. I'll show this quickly for everyone. So the Miami Dolphins, it is projected, what Barry Jackson projected us to have about, what was it, $21 million.
$21 million and some change, yep.
Right, Neal? Now, when we look at the draft class and what we are doing with the draft class here, well, it does get a little interesting because, I mean, this is what it's going to cost $12.729 million for this class. But Neal, only picks 13, 48, 98, and 116 will count towards the top 51 salaries of our cap. So that means, 135, 150, 155. Those contracts will not count against the top 51. And the reason being is the 51st contract on the roster right now, Neal, is Ethan Bonner at $1,030,000. So you see $1,057,000 replaces that. Now, we've seen people in the media, journalists, looking at us, Neal. We've got $21 million potentially in cap space. That is a lot when, if you do the math, after what we just showed there, right? It's going to cost what? A little over $7 million for the draft class, Neal.
Yep.
Will you add the numbers up, right? So
yeah, and really, you're a Jake Bailey release, because now we have 2 punters on the roster. You're a Jake Bailey release and a Jordan Brooks restructure away from covering your draft cost. So that $21 million that we're working with cap space, I think that's money that's in the debit account, and purchases can be made with that as soon as now.
Okay, so we know a portion of that is probably going to be Calais Campbell. All right. So, but
and they have a shot there. They still have a shot there.
They do.
That's not a stone that's unturned. Like, they have a real shot. I think I would put it at 33% him, 33% retirement, 33% Ravens. That's how I would put it.
Yeah, and I have an update coming to the Patreon, and he's one of the things I'll be updating regarding that situation. That'll probably be coming tonight or tomorrow at the latest. So be on the lookout for that. But okay, so could a move be on the horizon due to this available cap space? And 2 names that instantly popped into my head, Neal, are Asante Samuel Jr. or a trade for George Kittle, because all they've done is add Pharaoh Brown to that room. They haven't added anyone significant. But why I also say this too, Neal, George Kittle, he's got no money on his contract right now. And guess what? In 2026, Neal, he's got no guaranteed money in 2025. And in 2026, Neal, 3 void years start. 2026, 2027, 2028. We've seen they're discussing getting rid of Brandon Ayuk right now over there. They're trying to make room for paying Brock Purdy. They're even being stingy about paying Brock Purdy right now, wants $60 million. And I've heard they're in the $45 million range. What do you think? Could the Dolphins have a move on the horizon and Asante Samuel Jr. maybe at 10 to 12 million, or a trade for Kittle and converting void years into money and putting some money on that contract this year? We know how much McDaniel loves Kittle. He's 32. He probably wouldn't cost a lot in terms of what you'd have to trade back, because you're giving him new money in his age. What do you think could be the move? What do you think of those moves? And do you even think there's something on the horizon right now?
Yeah, I think that there's a move to be made, because why I think there is the way they changed the way they structured Zach Wilson's contract. It made it apparent that they wanted to have an increased amount of cap space right now, right? They could have kept the contract how it was and took more of the burden of Zach's hit. This year, they decided to kind of do it with void years, so they wanted to create some flexibility there in the cap space. Look, George Kittle, if he was not the best, he was the second best tight end in all of football behind Brock Bowers. He'd be a tremendous upgrade. They have not locked up Jonnu Smith. And I also even think that it's not fair to have the same expectations on Jonnu Smith as he performed last season. Honestly, I feel like that could be kind of an outlier. Not to say I don't think he's a great little number 2 tight end, and he's a good weapon. But I think the Dolphins definitely need to find a more traditional overall tight end for their offense. And George Kittle would be a home run. Probably would cost you a 3rd round pick.
I don't even think that, because you got to give him money. I've talked to them about one of those 4ths, bro. We want 116 or the pick after that.
Yeah,
you know?
I'd do that in a second. Look, and Asante Samuel's a young corner. I'm surprised he's still in the market. I know there were some injuries there, but I mean, Miami's home for him. I do think that they have to have something up their sleeves in the secondary, right? It just has. There's got to be a move, because it's. I mean, look,
bleak.
it's bleak, man, and there's no depth to it anymore. Because if you're really elevating Cam Smith and Storm Duck to more prevalent roles, I mean, they're more depth pieces at this point. So,
and Kohu's better as a nickel and in the slot. You don't want him on the boundary a ton.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to think if there anyone else, because
well, Neal, are they saving some of this money? We talk about Calais. Is some of this money being saved, Neal, for Armstead potentially coming back?
Yeah, and that could I think that could be the case. I think it could be, if I had a bet, it could be Teron Armstead and Calais Campbell money, and they want to bring both of them back, and I think that money allows them to do both moves. So that could make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I lean towards I was letting you get your thoughts out on who those potential moves on the horizon could be, but I do lean towards what you just said. I think that money is Calais, draft class, and Teron Armstead. And if Teron Armstead doesn't come back, then maybe you see them play with the money.
Yeah, and the notion that I'm excited about Patrick Paul at left tackle, because I was a fan of him coming out. I love his approach. But if Teron Armstead wants to come back to this team one more year, who gives a shit? If he gets hurt, you got Patrick Paul anyway. For me, I think it's asinine to think that Teron Armstead doesn't make us a better team. And I think he did a really nice team-friendly move by allowing us to maneuver his cap space money the way we did. I'm all about one more year of Teron Armstead, man. He's the best offensive lineman we've had in here, definitely since Mike Pouncey. I don't care how much time he misses.
Best left tackle since Brandon Albert when he was healthy, for sure.
I actually think he's better than Jake Long and Brandon Albert, to be honest.
And Larry Tunsil, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the best since Richmond Webb. He's the best since Richmond Webb.
I can agree with that. And he's a great leader, man. And he makes the young guys on the line better. He's given lessons with Chop Robinson. He's when we talk about the bad things about the Dolphins culture,
he's one of the great
Campbell
things.
and Teron Armstead are two of the great things about their culture. So getting two of those guys back, I think I think he's going to want to come back. I do. And the Dolphins would be foolish not to bring him back.
I agree. Well over 400 people in the room right now watching, guys. Do us a favor, smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. Neal, you got a couple minutes here. You got any final thoughts as we get closer to we're like under a month out from the draft now.
Yeah, no, man, this is it. The countdown is on. I remember we were talking it's only 3 months away. It's going to be here before we know it. Obviously, Major League Baseball is kicking off today. Stanley Cup playoffs are right around the corner. This April, WrestleMania for the wrestling fans out there. This is.
Are you going? You're going to Vegas, right?
Yeah, we are. Yes. Just me and my son, though. No big.
Pray for trip. Neal's pockets, everyone, and not even just for WrestleMania, for how much everything. A Sprite from your room is going to cost $13 out of the fridge, and that's not even a lie.
Yeah, and my old fashions are going to cost $35. So it's all good though. But but yeah, April, it's a great time of year. It's also my little guy's birthday. We're starting soccer, spring soccer, baseball. It's busy, man. It's fast and furious. But as a sports fan, it doesn't get any better than this, man. This is my favorite time of the year. And God, I mean, we'll be. Two, 3 shows away, and then it's draft night. And man, I can't wait, because I do think the Dolphins are in a unique position at pick 13. If you put it in perspective, reason as good as Chop Robinson was, right? And he fell to us. If we had pick 13 last year, it's Brock Bowers, right? That's a type of talent that could fall down draft boards on draft night. I think the Dolphins are going to have a unique opportunity to get a top 7 to 8 talent in this draft, more than likely at pick 13. And I'm just excited to see how it unfolds, because it's going to be crazy, man. And you know what, reason? It's the first year that I can remember every team right now owns their own first round pick.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that. Yeah. And I can't wait till we do our mock draft before that. I released a mock through the simulator, pre-free agency. I haven't released one on Twitter since. I'm with you with what you said earlier. The problem with those simulators is they're so unrealistic. I've seen people getting Kenneth Grant at 48. That's ridiculous.
I literally was just gonna say, last night I got Membu at 13 and Kenny Grant at 48. That's an Ozzie Newsome type draft. That doesn't happen.
No. And then when people do these trade backs and just amass this crazy amount of picks, You
It
know,
never
like,
happens like that. Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
so it's just crazy. But honestly, man, I can't wait. Like, hey, favorite time of the year, and I got my guard big board. I dropped my defensive tackle big board on last Saturday. I got my guard big board coming this Saturday, and then we'll get into cornerback next week, and then I'm going to drop 3 or 4 more after that. The rest of the big boards that don't make video format on YouTube will be available to channel members and Patreons in text format. And then on top of that, I got a Patreon and channel member update coming either tonight or tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. Join the Patreon, join the channel member, become a channel member. It really helps out and keeps the channel going. Listen, until Saturday, unless something breaks, I will see y'all with my guard big board. Appreciate you coming through, Neal. As always, fins up all day, every day. And we will see each and every one of you on the next one.